Lost episodes. They're more common than you'd think. Aside from being a really shitty genre of creepypastas, lost episodes very much do exist. Plenty of shows out there have episodes that are missing in one way or another. Sometimes it's because the episode was pulled from syndication, other times it's because of legal issues such as a copyrighted song that they don't have the rights to anymore, and occasionally it's because the episode is just lost media, as in it has no known archives. Avatar has one of these episodes. Escape from the Spirit World was an Avatar Flash game that, despite not being an actual episode, is considered to be canon to the series even to this day. It's a bit of a unique example of a lost episode, but it's a lost episode nonetheless. I guess you could actually call this one of the first pieces of supplemental material for Avatar. Due to this game's canon status, many fans consider it the lost episode. But as we'll see today, this little Flash game is much more than that and has a lot of extremely interesting tidbits hidden within it. I'm your host, MattCMG. Let's get weird, let's get wild, and let's escape from this spirit world as we take a look at Avatar's lost episode. Like I mentioned, Escape from the Spirit World was a Flash game on Nick.com that for obvious reasons is no longer accessible. Now this game is not to be confused with the similarly titled Escape the Spirit World without the from. I went out of my way to download an archive of old Flash games to try and get good quality footage of this thing, and ended up getting an hour of footage of the complete wrong game.
I hate my life and I wanna die.
As far as I can find out, this game is no longer playable by any means, but honestly, you're not really missing much. The only original gameplay that this thing had was multiple choice trivia with literally 4 questions, with the rest of the games included being pre-existing Flash games that have since been archived. This is the first time in my life that I can truly say I'm playing a fucking Flash game for the story. To actually unlock this story back when the game was still active, you would need to enter passwords at the end of each level in order to see the cutscenes. These passwords were only available by watching Nick on Saturday mornings, where they would reveal the code at the end of episodes. Fan of the channel AK Master, who compiles a lot of Avatar commercials from back in the day, actually has footage of this, but it's very poor quality, but it did in fact happen. If you weren't very internet savvy back then, or nobody posted these things online, this was really the only way you could get these codes. I actually had no idea any of this existed as a kid, but I think I would have found it pretty cool. Of course, this is completely unnecessary today, as the cutscenes have all been archived and uploaded to YouTube in glorious 240p, as well as included on some Avatar DVDs as bonus features, but I've always found stuff that you just had to be there for really cool. Not only is this the first Flash game I would play for the story, but it also might be the first live service Flash game. Eat your heart out, Friday Night Funkin'. Friday Night Fucking, baby, let's go. But now to get into what you actually clicked on this video for, let's talk about the story of this game. Escape from the Spirit World takes place between seasons 2 and 3, and details what Aang was experiencing while unconscious after Azula shot him. Stuck in the Spirit World, Princess Yue appears to Aang and tells him that his physical injuries aren't the only ones, as the Avatar spirit is also injured. For reasons that are never really explained, Aang must reconnect with his past lives in order to prevent the Avatar cycle from ending. What's interesting about this is that this is actually quite consistent with some of the lore added in The Legend of Korra. Mike and Brian have actually stated that they thought of the whole Rava and Vatu thing and the Avatar's origins way back in season 2 of The Last Airbender, but never actually got around to implementing it until season 2 of Korra. The Avatar spirit, aka Rava, is explicitly mentioned yet again, though not by name. The idea of healing or connecting to the Avatar spirit by connecting with your past lives was also introduced here, where Aang must connect with 4 of his past lives, and was brought back in The Legend of Korra, where Korra connects with Wan. Oh, I'm sorry, what's this? Oh, they pulled the lore out of their ass, it makes no sense. Well, guess what, idiot? Now we know that that's not true. Now we know that they were thinking into this stuff and actually implementing it into the canon long before that. This has been a defending Korra moment, back to your regularly scheduled programming. But in all seriousness though, I do appreciate how this relatively obscure and hard to access first piece of expanded universe material, if you will, wasn't just brushed off and ignored by Mike and Brian. They actually took it into account when they just as easily could have just said, it's not canon, and retconned. But now let's move on to the story of an Avatar I'm sure we're all familiar with. Avatar Roku. When Aang encounters Roku, he tells him that he is ashamed of himself for failing at Ba Sing Se and failing at mastering the Avatar state. But little does Aang know that he's not alone in that, as Roku also had trouble learning to master the Avatar state. Much like how Aang trained with Guru Patik to master the Avatar state, Roku trained with Fire Sage Kaja, who's actually the grandfather of Shayu from the Winter Solstice episode, to do the same. However, Roku grew impatient with all the meditating and thinking of Komodo chicken that he decided to find a different method. So, on the solstice, Roku allowed a beam from the sun to hit him, filling him with enough spiritual energy to enter the Avatar state. But what he didn't calculate was that he wouldn't be able to control his power through this method, so he accidentally destroys the top of the temple before being brought down by Kaja. There's a couple interesting things about Roku's story here. Firstly is that it kind of debunks this idea that the only way to unlock the Avatar state is by opening the chakras. As we see, Roku was able to do it by absorbing the spiritual energy on the solstice, but that amount of energy was too much for him to control. He does start off by meditating, but he's not meditating on any particular chakra, so I don't think you can really make the argument that he was going for the chakras there. Secondly, this story is heavily foreshadowed in the Winter Solstice episode. In that episode, there's a statue of Roku at the top of the Fire Sage's temple on the Crescent Island, where light from the sun will hit it on the solstice. Roku's story here is clearly the origin of this statue, as it was Roku himself who rebuilt the top of the temple that he destroyed. Obviously, the statue is of an older version of him, so it likely wasn't put there until after he died, but the fact remains that somebody had to make the conscious decision to do that. My money would be on Fire Sage Kasha, since he was the only one who knew about this situation. Either that, or it's another example of the Avatar universe having some form of fate or whatever the fuck. Either way, it's a nice little cinematic parallel at the very least. And thirdly, it expands upon the relationship between Aang and Roku. Both of them fucked up when using the Avatar state, so they have something to connect over. It helps Aang realize that it wasn't necessarily his fault, that the Avatar state is a fickle beast that takes years to master, so he shouldn't blame himself for his failure. After this nice little bonding moment, Roku sends Aang to Heibei's lair to find Avatar Kyoshi for the next story. This section starts off kinda funny, where Kyoshi begins her conversation with Aang by apologizing for the events of the episode Avatar Day, and then quickly backtracks on that to essentially reiterate that she did, in fact, kill his bitch ass. But instead of harping on Shin the Conqueror all day, Kyoshi tells a different story from her life. The peasants of Ba Sing Se are attempting an uprising because they feel that the monarchy is not fulfilling their needs, so the Earth King calls in Avatar Kyoshi to quell their rage. Kyoshi refuses and sides with the peasants instead, to which the king tries to have her arrested. But we all know that you can't keep a bad bitch down.
I'm a bad bitch, you can't kill me.
And Kyoshi kicks their asses and strikes a deal with the Earth King. He gives the people what they want, while she trains a group to uphold the city's cultural heritage. A group that would later be known as the Dai Li. This, of course, comes as a shock to Aang, as the Dai Li in his time are incredibly corrupt, as we see throughout the back half of Season 2. Aside from Kyoshi's message that I'll get into in a minute, there are some other interesting things to note here. The main thing that I wanted to focus on is how this story shows us the disparity between how the public views the Avatar versus how the Avatar actually is. The Earth King calls Kyoshi in to deal with the uprising, but he treats her like some sort of weapon, like the only thing the Avatar does is beat people up. This is also seen in Avatar Day, where the people of Chin Village view the Avatar as some godlike tyrant. Kind of funny how both of those examples are Kyoshi. Y'all might just be picking the outlier there, just saying. The other half of this disparity is seen when Kyoshi takes the side of the people over the king. The Avatar's duty is to the people, not to political leaders. The former seeks to restore balance, the latter runs the risk of politicians abusing the Avatar's power for their selfish needs, corrupting the Avatar's purpose in the process. Kyoshi understood this, which is why she did what she did. Just goes to show that Avatars and political leaders tend to not get along. However, though she ended up making the right call at the time, she had no way of knowing how said political corruption would affect things generations down the line. She created the Dai Li with the sole intent of preserving Ba Sing Se's cultural heritage and to prevent corruption, but as the years went on, the Dai Li became a glorified mercenary group loyal to whoever held the most political power. The Dai Li had lost their way and became villains, and there's no way Kyoshi could have known that when she created them. Her message to Aang is that things that seem like good ideas at the time can come back to bite him later. The failures of the previous Avatar tend to affect the next one or even several Avatars later. She tells him this, and then sends him off to find the Avatar before her, Avatar Kuruk. He tells Aang his life story, where in his early years of being the Avatar, Kuruk was very arrogant, self-centered, and kind of a dick. He would often abuse his power to impress women, and, honestly, on that front, can't really blame him. Hey babe, I can firebend, but it ain't as hot as you. Crikey, bro. That is all until one day at the New Moon celebration, where Kuruk falls in love with a woman named Umi. The two later become engaged, and Kuruk makes an effort to change for the better. Unfortunately, at their wedding at the Spirit Oasis, Umi is pulled into the water by none other than Ko, the Face Stealer, who wanted to punish Kuruk for his initial arrogance and the actions of his past lives. From then on, Kuruk would make a yearly journey into the spirit world to search for his wife, but with no luck. Aang reveals to Kuruk that he actually knows Ko and has seen the face of his wife, so Kuruk goes off to face Ko, sending Aang on his way. Okay, so now I want to introduce a new segment on this channel called the Avatar Kuruk Slander Session, because I fucking hate this dude. Based on everything we know about this guy from various canon material, he is genuinely the worst Avatar we know of. Now, it's not because of the backstory itself, the story is actually fine, and he goes through some pretty good character development. It's about the fact that it's the only interesting thing about him. Oh, but man, it's a tragic story about an Avatar who failed. Okay, yeah, cool, we've already seen it though. He is a one-trick poodle pony Avatar. I genuinely cannot fathom how people want to see more of this guy when this is pretty much all there is to him. Anytime this dude shows up in the canon, this is the only thing he can talk about. Avatar Kuruk, please lend me your wisdom. Hey man, I don't know about you and your piddly ass problems. All I know is that my wife got killed by a giant centipede man. Do what you will with that information. Obviously, part of this is because he died so young, so he doesn't have the life experience that Roku and Kyoshi might have, so it makes sense that he wouldn't have much to talk about. Even with that one story though, he rarely ever gives any substantial advice to any of the other avatars. When Aang asks him for advice in The Old Masters, he gives Aang this big nothing burger about forging your own destiny, and it's the least helpful shit ever. Even if you are just looking at Escape from the Spirit World, he literally doesn't tell Aang anything. All he does is say, "Hey bald kid, where's Centipede Man? Oh, he's that way. Okay, thanks, bye." He doesn't do what he's supposed to do in this situation and help Aang heal the Avatar spirit, he just tells him a story and leaves. I guess he can be helpful in the sense that he's the perfect example of what not to do. Now, some other recent canon material has attempted to go more in-depth with Kuruk. In the Kyoshi novels that I admittedly have not read, it's apparently revealed that it was actually the actions of Avatar Yangchen that pissed off the spirits and prompted Ko to punish Kuruk. This is even more annoying to me because, while sure, it does further the idea that the sins of the past avatars affect the current one, it kinda diminishes Kuruk's entire story here. The whole point of his story was that Kuruk was a dick, and he faced the consequences of it. But now we realize that he was just facing the consequences of Yangchen's actions, making his loss seem pretty senseless. Whatever, maybe I'm out of line, maybe I'm wrong, maybe everybody fucking loves Kuruk and I'm just an asshole. I just find it hard to care. But Avatar Yangchen wasn't exactly a saint either, as we discussed in the comics video from a couple weeks ago, so let's see if Avatar Yangchen has anything to say that'll help Aang. Avatar Yangchen's section serves to wrap up Aang's journey here, but curiously, she doesn't tell us a story of her own. Oh cool, alright, cool, I see how it is, Yangchen. You're gonna be selective with who you tell your fucking shitty actions to. Awesome. However, what Yangchen lacks in narrative, she makes up for in the theme, and thereby the purpose of Escape from the Spirit World. Aang realizes that something that all of the past lives have in common is that they all made mistakes, just like him. No avatar is perfect. This leads Aang to then question why the avatar is a human in every lifetime. After all, humans make mistakes, and mistakes come with consequences, so wouldn't it be better for the world if the avatar was just some immortal, godlike spirit that always made the objectively correct decision? Yangchen explains that it's actually the avatar's humanity that makes them such a force to be reckoned with. An all-powerful spirit can't exactly relate to the average person, so how are they to protect people that they don't understand? The avatar must be human, because in order to protect the world and the people in it, you must live in that world and live with the people in it. As Yangchen says, the avatar must be compassionate towards all people, and the only way to do that is to live with them. The avatar must experience the full spectrum of emotions from sadness, anger, happiness, and everything in between, because that's what tethers them to the world and makes them human. Yangchen's message, and thereby the meaning of not just this obscure Flash game, but the entire Avatar series as a whole, is that in order for the avatar to bring balance to the world, they first need to learn how to be a good person, how to be human. Oh, by the way, the Avatar spirit isn't dying anymore, but you still got shot with lightning. You're gonna wake up and forget all of this ever happened. Bye! And that, ladies and gentlemen, was Escape from the Spirit World. While this obscure little Flash game from 2007 was very short and at times kind of redundant, I think it's one of the most interesting and I would argue one of the most important pieces of Avatar media out there. While we didn't need to see how Roku entered the Avatar state or how Kyoshi created the Dai Li, there's still some interesting bits of lore that help flesh out the Avatar world. While I don't care much for Avatar Kuruk, and while his story is redundant and told to us again in the series, he and the other avatars adds to the theme that no avatar is perfect and that they all make mistakes. But that's what makes them the Avatar, because they're human. I've been MattCMG. I'll see y'all next week. Thanks for watching.